To our first council meeting of the new year. It's exciting that we were off for that long. I completely was able to de-stress, didn't have to think about much, and it was just really good. All council members are present this evening. I've asked Council Member Diana Anderson to lead us in the pledge and then opening remarks from Council Member Eric Jensen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear and kind Heavenly Father, as we bow our heads before Thee at the beginning of this year, the beginning of the City Council, we're grateful for the opportunities and friendships that we have had throughout this past year and that we look forward to this coming year. Again, we're grateful for the opportunity we have to gather as citizens of this community to talk about the issues that affect our city. We ask that we know to be civil and respectful one to another. And we say these things humbly. In the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. Okay, in reviewing the agenda tonight, I noticed that there were quite a few adjustments. So we're going to go through them together and just make sure that we're okay. One of the things that I discussed with Scott, I think through email, Scott, Tina, and Kathy, was we need an executive session to be added tonight. Was that put on the agenda?
I think it is
Let's
on
put
the
on.
agenda now.
Okay, great. Thank you. So that, yeah, item 17? Okay, so we will have an executive session. Normally, we publish these 24 hours in advance, but I think with the holidays and everything, vacations, that we weren't able to get the final version
Yeah.
out ahead of time.
And we're not required to, we just do in the interest of being.
Well, you're talking
disclosed.
about executive session only.
Sessions, yeah.
For the executive session,
You're not required to advertise
that and
it,
emergency meetings, right?
but we do.
Okay. Then, let's see.
So Mayor, really, items 9B through F have already been noted and moved to the 17th. Do we need to take action to do that?
Yes, so that they don't have to be renoticed, they have to be.
Say that again, please.
So items 9B, these are public hearing items. So 9B, C, D, E, and F, we just need one motion to move them all to January 17th.
Okay. Any other ones that we need to?
No,
The
that's
one
it.
that's on 9A, that's continued from, so
Yeah,
that's
9A
tonight.
we're going to deal with tonight.
Okay. Any other additions or changes?
No.
Council, anything else? Okay, and I'd like an update, if it's not on here, I'd like an update on where we are. Oh, there, okay, the owners committee, yeah.
Yep.
I'd
Guy
like an
Fugel
update
will
on
be
where we
here.
are. Thank you.
Oh, there is. Guy will
Guy's
be
right here,
He's
yeah,
here.
so I'm coming. Okay, with those changes then, I'll call for a motion on tonight's agenda.
Mayor, council, I'll make the motion that we adopt the amended agenda as printed, including an executive session, and that we move public hearing items 9B through F to January 17th.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ben and a second by Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. All right, let's have our open session, an item that's not an open session on the agenda, or something that's just not on the agenda at all, and you'd like to comment, please come up to the podium and state your name.
And title.
Okay, I am Allison Lawrence. I'm Miss Pleasant Grove, and I am competing in the Miss Utah pageant this coming June. I'm very excited. One of the requirements for competing in Miss Utah is collecting shoes for an organization called Power to Become, Shoes for Africa, and these shoes will be donated to people living in the country Burkina Faso, and they will wear these shoes. They'll trade these shoes for water and food and other necessities. And I would like to request permission to place donation boxes in the city buildings in Pleasant Grove to have the city help me in collecting these shoes.
I think we can accommodate that. I would suggest maybe working with Dion. He's got facilities, so he'll help you with placement of those.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else that you need help with on that?
That's it.
Okay,
Just
good.
getting shoes collected.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Allison. Would anyone else like to speak?
Blaine Thatcher. I'd like to again ask what efforts are being made to reduce the costs of the bond, or ultimately the building and consequently the bond. Have efforts begun? And if so, what's happening?
Yeah. Do you want that answer now or do you want it during the report? Because I have some information that's not part of the report that I think everyone might be interested in. Yeah. Is it on there?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
that's
great.
on the agenda.
So I can address that during the part that's on the agenda.
Well, and I guess I would just point out that, and I've made a few comments to this effect. It appears that the city is moving ahead full steam on borrowing the full amount, $9.5 million of the bond. And that seems quite premature to me, based on numerous comments that were made in the committee, and showing that there was a lot of work to be done and a lot of work that could be done to reduce the costs and the need to borrow that full amount. And so it appears that we sort of abandoned that effort to reduce the costs, and we're moving ahead to bond fully. I think it's important to note that we would save nearly $1 million in interest alone if we borrowed only $7 million. And I think it's well known that we have $1.5 million available to begin the process of architectural work and other things to see if we can reduce those costs. It's been mentioned that rates might increase, and even if we waited to bond for perhaps a year, knowing we have money to work with right now, and rates went up 1/4 of a point, we'd still save over $750,000 in interest alone by borrowing $7 million instead of the 9.5. So I think there's ample reason to seek to reduce those costs before we bond fully for the maximum amount. And I would encourage the city to do this. You know, I think it's also important to note that along with all those comments made in the committee, Mayor, you yourself asked the committee, the council, city staff, and employees to agree to support this effort to drive down the costs and help solve our PSB
That's
needs.
correct.
And the committee, council, and our city staff all agreed.
Correct.
So I think it's incumbent upon this body to do that before we fully bond.
So let me just address that, Blaine. I don't want it to get missed. The bond amount and the interest, there's an explanation, and Scott has explained it to me, but I'm going to let him explain it to the whole group when it's time to do that, and the timing and why it's okay to start it now. It's out of order from what logic would tell you, but the savings can still be there. There's some donors that I've met with over the break, and I think that, and there's some work to do with the engineering and architectural that I think are going to help us to meet those kinds of commitments to look at that and bring costs down. Okay, thank you. So Scott, if you can capture those in the parts that you're able to in when we give the update, and then I'll do the part on mine.
Yes.
Okay. And Guy, are you going to be speaking? Okay, so if you could, whatever you can present to that, to answer those questions as well, I think would be helpful.
Yeah, Mayor Guy's going to talk about kind of the process that we've been in so far and what
Okay.
we're going to do moving forward regarding architectural services.
Okay.
I'll cover the financial side,
Okay.
and
That sounds
so
good.
we'll do that.
Okay. Thanks. Anyone else want to address the council at this time? No? Okay. Let's go ahead then and close the open session. Let's move on to consent items. Any discussion on the consent items? Any questions? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make the motion, we approve the consent items.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Eric and a second by Diana. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you. All right. We have no board commission appointments tonight, presentations, so we'll move on to 9A, public hearings. 9A is a continued public hearing to consider for adoption an ordinance 2016-29 to release a certain portion of existing 40-foot and 20-foot drainage easements for the Palisades Plat D Lot 23 subdivision located at 813 East, 767 South. Release of the easements will be conditional upon approved modifications of existing infrastructure. Marty?
Excuse me. Just get this running. We were approached probably 6 months or so ago by the developer of the Palisades Plat D subdivision, and they made a request that we work with them on trying to get an easement that that was recorded against Lot 23 at the time of subdivision, about a year and a half ago or so. And so this Lot 23 was of the Palisades subdivision Plat D, had a 55-foot easement. You can see there, well, it's 40 foot wide, and it came down here to a section. It came over, and then it was 20 foot along this east side of this Lot 23. The storm drain line, it's a storm drain irrigation facility. It's both, and it comes down, and it's called a drainage easement. It came down here. There was a box here, and when they originally came in with the proposed development, they put an additional box here and then took it out to the road approximately here where it got into the road storm drain system. And as you can see, it really encroaches on that property significantly to where it's going to be difficult to build a home, which they were aware of obviously at the time they subdivided. As they started working on some plans for this house, they noticed how narrow that is and how they would like to expand that. So they met with us out there inside and said, okay, what can we do that would allow this to be changed to a narrower easement and allow us to get a little bit more buildable area on the lot. One of the things that there is some value to us, and that's why we were willing to work with them on this overall concept, and that is that in the future, right now we have a storm drain line that is on this east side of Lot 3 of the Martha's Vineyard subdivision, and it's got trees all the way along it. It's an old line that it was piped. The old ditch that was there was piped, and it's not the ideal location for us to be in the future. So this line currently comes here, it jogs out, and then comes out here. And the difficulty in maintaining those boxes in the backyard is very difficult for us. Yes.
Question.
Yes.
So are we talking a box that's in the curb, or are we talking a box that's a big, huge box and it has the grate over the top of it?
Right. So the box out here in the street is a curb inlet box that you're referring to.
Curb inlet.
To the curb.
Okay.
The two boxes back here are probably 4x4 boxes, so 4 foot by 4 foot, and have a grate on the top of them. So what happens when material comes down here? It kind of gets caught in here, and so we need to be able to access those locations with the vac truck and get it out of there. As we've discussed further on what would be best for us in the future, rather than having this little angled piece and maintain this alignment, we would like that this pipe come and go straight through and then go straight out to the cul-de-sac that's directly north of this. And we've been in the process of trying to eliminate backyard storm drains. Now, there's no way for us to eliminate this line regardless, but there is a way to make it a little bit easier to access and maintain, and that would be to have a pipe that goes from here straight to there as one pipe. And the way that we do that is that we have this box here relocated. Well, the box that was here, it's relocated to there, and then we can just take that off in the future and extend that into the cul-de-sac. So that was the discussion and the reason why we said, hey, you know, we can get something from this that's beneficial to the city if they will realign their storm drain. They already had it installed. They spent probably over $10,000 to realign it into this alignment, and with the understanding that in the future that we could extend it up directly and have a straight access with no boxes in the backyard. So in order to do that, though, we needed to have at least a 20-foot wide easement so that we can be able to repair and maintain that line or replace it in the future. And so the requirement was that there's a 10-foot easement on lot 24, which he's agreed to do. The difficulty has come in getting Mr. Carson here to dedicate this easement across the property that we discussed. However, that being said, there's already a sewer, water, pressure irrigation, and a temporary access easement that come across this property. We talked with Mr. Carson today. It's been the holidays. It was difficult to get this all resolved earlier. But Mr. Carson is interested in developing this property and will likely be coming to talk with us tomorrow. And there is a potential. He owns this lot here north of his house here, and there is a potential for him to get another lot in there by the zoning ordinances. At that time, what our recommendation is here, we indicated two conditions on the approval of the release of the easement, and that is that, one, we get the 10-foot easement along lot 24, and we get a 20-foot easement through to the Carson property. However, we can get that easement in the future as Mr. Carson develops. And right now, because of the easements that are already on the property, there would be no way that he could be issued a permit that would essentially block off that access to those boxes. And so today, so that they can move forward with this, we're actually going to recommend that they only have one condition, and that is that they provide the easement on lot 24, and not that we'll work with Mr. Carson to get the remaining easement through lot 2 right now when he comes in to subdivide further, or in the future as he has other development needs. So that's the thing that we're considering.
So is somebody here representing them?
Yes.
Jared? Yeah. Good. Good to see you again. A little older, a little wiser.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak to this at all? Which
Mark-
part are you involved in?
I'm one of the owners of, well, I'm the developer.
Use a pointer there.
Sorry. Yeah, so I'm the developer of Palisades, and then I'm also building the home on 23. And then I'm dealing with the owners on lot 24.
So
too.
where's Palisades?
Palisades is the dark black line, everything below that.
Below, okay. And so your part is the current easement that's being vacated.
Correct. I'm the one that approached Marty originally and asked if there was a way that we could work something out, and then in the discussion determined that there was a mutual benefit to do something. So
And then-
we have realigned that pipe to coincide with where
Thank you.
it was asked.
Are you also talking to Mr. Carson, or is?
I'm originally the one that talked to Mr. Carson, yeah, and then he indicated that he was interested in subdividing and was planning on dealing with the city and wanted to go that route. So
Anything you wanted to add to
No, Marty covered
tonight's
it really well.
discussion? Okay. Any questions for Jared?
Which Carson is this?
Terry is his name. Terry,
Terry?
the T. Yep.
Okay, thanks, Jared. Any questions for Marty? Marty, do you know, is Mr. Carson going to do his development himself, or is he going to bring in someone to do the development?
I don't know the answer to that yet. Meeting with him tomorrow.
I imagine that that like Jared, anybody that's done development understands this whole concept of moving of easements and whatnot.
That's correct.
Okay,
And we had a brief discussion with him today, so he's aware. Jared's also talked with him about what they're doing. He just wants to see it and sit down and talk about
Okay.
it. So
And then just to
don't see
be
an issue.
clear for my benefit, it's this purple section here that we're talking about vacating.
that is correct.
The rest of this here remains. Does this remain also?
Yes, it does.
So,
Until at the time that we can get it, then it could be vacated in the future. But right now, we would keep that portion because we still need to be able to access it.
so if and when this box is able to service a straight line, then this could be removed?
That is correct.
Okay, got it. Okay, if there's no other discussion or questions, I'll entertain a motion. Is this a public hearing? It's a public hearing. Let's open it up for the public. If any of you would like to comment on this, please come up and state your name. No? Okay.
Not all at once.
Yeah. We'll close the public hearing and come back up. Any further discussion? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2016-29 to release a portion of existing 40-foot and 20-foot drainage easements for the Palisades Plat D, Lot 23 subdivision located at 813 East, 767 South.
And read the conditions too, please.
Release of easements will be conditional upon approved modifications of existing infrastructure.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Diana, a second by Ben. By voice, Diana.
Yes.
Eric.
Yes.
Sid.
Yes.
Ben.
Yes.
Lynn.
Yes.
It's unanimous. Thanks, Jared. Okay. Now I think we jump all the way down to 10A. These are action items ready for vote. It's to consider for approval a 4-lot final plat subdivision, final subdivision plat called Valley Garden Plat A, located at approximately 569 North Canyon View Lane in the R112 Single Family Residential Zone. Ken?
Okay. This particular property came before us last year under the name of Walker Grove, and we created 6 lots at that time on that property. They knew that there was a few issues that they wanted to resolve with that plat at that time, but they decided to go ahead and move forward with the approval. They worked through some of the issues and actually came up with a new arrangement that we hadn't previously anticipated, but it works just fine. So again, at 569 North Canyon View Lane in the R110 and R112 zones, we have now located here in the cross hatching. We're including more property this time that comes down into this area where we had an issue about backyards wanting to pick up a little bit different property on one side there. So they made a negotiation with this property owner here so that it affected their property line, which also in the negotiations affected the adjoining property. So we have a new, instead of just this acreage up here, it includes quite a bit down here as well. So instead of 6 lots, we're bringing it down to 4 lots as, well, there's the aerial as shown here. So you're actually getting 2 large lots in the space where we had 6, except for this little amount here is being added to that property and then adjusting the line with the neighbor there. So this pretty simple. It's just adjusting lot lines and actually creating less lots than what we had before. And this preliminary plat went to Planning Commission on December the 8th, and it was approved unanimously. And we don't feel there's any greater issues at this time, so staff recommends approval of the final plat.
And the dotted, cross-hatched section, I don't know what it is, right here. What is that?
Isn't that a drainage easement, Marty?
Oh, is that where
Yes.
the Grove Creek goes?
That is correct.
Okay.
It's all been piped though, Mayor, right there. I don't have a pointer. Anyways, on lot 2, I believe, it was piped from that point all the way through this lot now. So everything's underground now in a 32-inch pipe, I believe.
So building envelope would be outside of that easement.
They won't build over that or encroach.
So, because it's not real clear for me, if the road is up here, then what is going to happen with this white
It's all
space?
front yard area.
It'll just be yard.
Yes.
So really, the whole thing will be yard.
Yes.
Okay. And are there existing homes here now?
There is at least one left that is being removed. Well, at least one of those was being.
Lot 2 has a home, lot 1 doesn't have a home yet.
There was already one that was removed up there.
I think lot 4 has a home as well, but
So is that an easement area at all, or we don't have to, like, what about a driveway on top of it?
Driveway's fine to cross over it. You just can't build a structure on top.
That's not that really big home with the fancy pool and everything, the rock wall.
I think
No.
that's not the
Okay.
big one.
Questions for Ken? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
All right, Mayor, I make a motion that we, wait, what, is this one? Okay. That we approve a 4-lot final subdivision plat called Valley Garden Plat A, located approximately 569 North Canyon View Lane in the R112 zone.
Second.
Finding the exhibits, conditions, and
Seconded if we include the language about adopting the conditions and exhibits.
That we approve, that this is conditional upon the findings of the
Staff
the
report.
exhibits,
Staff
conditions, and
and
findings, staff
exhibits.
report, right?
findings.
Perfect.
Final engineering and
Couldn't
fire
have been
department
better.
requirements. Okay, thank you. So we have a motion by Diana, second by Ben. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, moving on to item 10B, to consider for approval a 3-lot final plat subdivision, a 3-lot subdivision, final subdivision plat called Hullinger Plat D, located at approximately 1290 North, 860 West in the R18 zone.
Okay, this particular item, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to finish it tonight. There's a potential we may need to continue that. I believe, has the applicant shown up for this?
Which Hullinger is it?
The applicant is actually Bruce Holgard. Okay.
The Red Barn?
Huh?
Is that near the barn?
It's right near there, yeah. So, okay, so let me explain what the situation is. We have, this preliminary plat was approved by Planning Commission upon a condition that we receive from the adjoining neighbors some written notification or understanding that they agreed with the proposed change in the vicinity plan. So this is their plat right here. So they're wanting to make a cul-de-sac at this point, which previously, or according to our current vicinity plan, this road is to extend southward and connect into this so that we have this connecting roadway through there. They're proposing to close it here with a cul-de-sac, and that their new vicinity plan would do something like this. It would connect over here. So that still has a good flow east-west and through that area. It just eliminates that north-south, which staff has felt comfortable that there's not that much of a demand for both the east-west and north-south in that area. So we recommended that move forward, only with the understanding of the adjacent property owners that this was going to happen rather than going north. We haven't as yet received that. I don't know if anybody's here to represent this application yet, but the condition or recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission and then also by staff is that we have something from these adjoining property owners that they're okay with this vicinity plan because it does affect their properties.
Tina, are we able to do that without?
So, what? Yeah, so you can do the same thing that the planning commission did and make a recommendation, approve it conditionally upon receiving this information. The hesitancy is on that is what happens if they have a problem getting it, or they have some explanation, or the neighbors want to come in and speak. So there may be some details or some fallout from that requirement that we're not aware of right now, and if you put that condition on it, then I think we'd have to renotice it.
So it's written in the recommended language. What do you go forward?
I would say I would continue it 2 weeks if it was
Okay.
me,
2 weeks?
and make the applicant come in and say, yes, I've contacted them, here's the info, or no, I haven't.
Ken, you concur? Okay, let's entertain a motion on that then.
Make a motion, Mayor, Council, that we continue item 10B, the 3-lot final approval of a subdivision plat called Hollinger Plat D, located approximately 1290 north, 860 west in the R18 single-family residential zone for 2 weeks.
So 117?
January
117.
17, yeah.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ben, a second by Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, 10C, to consider for adoption a resolution 2017-01 indicating the city's support of the Murdoch Connector alignment.
There's a council member in American Fork by the name of Rob Shelton, who I believe sent you an email about a month ago in regards to the Murdoch Connector. What it is it's a road that has been master planned to go in from the Alpine Highway, so what is it, 100 East in American Fork, all the way to Harvey Boulevard in Cedar Hills. Now, Harvey Boulevard eventually turns into 4000 North in Pleasant Grove. Where this road is going to go right now it's not in our city. None of this road is going to be in our city. But will have an impact on us because it will be an east-west corridor moving traffic from the Alpine Highway really all the way to 100 East or Canyon Road.
Can you pull that up on a map?
I can.
Marty, can you help me?
Yeah.
So this road has been planned for a while, and I
I have Scott on the white remote.
do that. I'm not aware of the full history of the road, other than what Councilmember Shelton put in his email, saying that it was supposed to be constructed by now, but it ran into some political issues on the state level, and they're trying to revitalize the project. And what they are looking for is a resolution of support from the cities that are involved, where the road will go, and also some of the neighboring communities, of which Pleasant Grove would be one. So all this resolution does is state that we are supportive of the project.
Questions?
Do we,
You guys are familiar with this, right? This is north of the developmental center.
so here's Harvey Boulevard. I believe it goes through this property. Do you know where it connects in exactly, Marty? Right there. It goes right on the north part of Fox Hollow into, this is there's American Fork Detention Secondary Pond there. This is the Alpine Highway. So that's the essence of it. They're looking for support, a resolution from our city council saying you support the project, of which that will be sent to Representative Mike Kennedy, who is the one working on the legislation to resolve the conflict to have this road go in. I guess the way it impacts us is, like I was saying, here's Harvey Boulevard through Cedar Hills. This is 900 West here, and that's 4,000 North. So it would connect into Canyon Road First East. Obviously, this is not a good road as far as a wide road and something that could handle a lot of traffic. So we don't necessarily know the impact of how much traffic that's going to take. Cedar Hills has provided a workaround, a little bit wider road here that will connect into First East. This road isn't fully completed. There's one section there that's not completed, just waiting for that person to develop, and then that portion will go in. And so there is a way to a nice wider road in order to get that traffic up there.
That'll be a county road, state road?
I don't think it's going to be a state road. I don't know the answer to that.
I would guess it's probably just a city road.
Yeah, I doubt it'd be county road either.
Made it to the city.
Be a Highland Road?
Well, it's whatever portion of the road is in that particular community would have ownership of that stretch of the road.
And do you know, for the benefit of the public, Scott, the funding for the road, what monies are going to be used to do this project?
I don't know that.
But none of it will come from us.
No, it's not from us.
It won't come directly from Pleasant Grove. I think MAG is partially involved in this, but I also think that like the land was already purchased by Highland to the north, and then of course the land that's on the south part of that would be part of American Fork, which is part of the golf course, for that stretch of road that's to be acquired. The one up above, I think, that's all Highland, right?
Well, this right here, this is the developmental center property that the guy came in.
It's a school district property.
So is it all Highland or is it all?
I'm not sure the city limits of this here.
Yeah, I'm not either.
But when that's developed, it was master plan for that road to go in through there when they were showing that master plan development. So they were planning on it for that road
So
to
the
be
question
dedicated.
for us is, do we provide support?
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a resolution here. Do we need to read the resolution?
A short title.
A resolution of support. This is a resolution of support for the Utah State Developmental Center and the Murdoch Connector and providing for an effective date. Okay. If there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Let me ask a quick other question,
Yeah.
Mayor, if I may. The land that came from the golf course, does that have a financial implication for our city?
I don't know if that land has already been dedicated. I don't know if it's golf course land or if it's,
It's not golf course land,
is it
Highland City land.
that owns the land?
Okay.
And that was a long time ago. Those houses on that north side, I wanted to squat in them, but
There's
Nice
a
homes.
house right on the golf course, right? That house is going to be
Yeah.
there's two homes.
and they'll be taken out for the road? Or the road is going to, okay,
Highland bought those homes a long time ago.
okay.
They're both vacant.
What was your other question?
Oh, that's it. That's good.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make the motion for adoption of Resolution 2017-01 indicating the city's support of the Murdoch Connector alignment.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Eric and a second by Sid. By voice, Lynn? Ben?
Yes.
Sid?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Motion carries. I'm surprised to see that one move so quickly, considering, well, not considering the history, but how quickly this one individual got involved, and then all of a sudden the momentum was there to,
Sounds like it's back on track.
yeah, it's good. Okay, items for discussion. Item 11A is an update on architectural services from the Owners Committee. This is going to be by Guy Fugel, and Dave, if you're joining in on that, and if you could also maybe talk a little bit about some of the engineering and money-saving aspects of what you're looking at.
Well, glad to be here this evening. We're really excited, at least Dave and I are, about our new responsibility here in helping this thing go forward. And just give you a timeline real quick. Next Wednesday, we'll hold a pre-proposal conference on site here, so the architects can kind of see that and walk through and kind of see our needs and look at the property good and give us some ideas also. After that, the proposals will be due on January the 25th, and then the owners committee will narrow it down to the top candidates through January 26th to the 1st, and then hopefully on February the 7th that you'll have some candidates to interview as a council and hopefully move on one of those.
What was that date? I'm sorry.
That would be the February the 7th.
7th.
That's a
Our first meeting in February.
Oh, so we'll be able to do that in council?
Yeah, we're gonna do it
Okay.
on Tuesday night.
And then shortly after that, we'll be putting our the RFP out for a construction manager. Work with the architect as they're going along, and right in early February. And then the other thing to think about it, early March, we'll entertain bids for the demolition of the rec center. That's kind of the time frame. You know, we've met a couple times, and especially Dave being on board and his great knowledge of a lot of redos, and one particular was Orem High School, where we left Orem High School there and then built a new school in the parking lot, and then took the old school down. Worked out really well, and that concept, we have something we want to kind of have the architects look at that. We really feel like we need to shorten up the time frame on the building process because of I think we all feel that construction costs are going to escalate. I would say more than probably what you were worrying about here on bond money and whatever. You know, just in this week or last week they're just barely starting to move dirt for the new prison and saying, well, costs are going to go up, and they're pegging that as an additional $1 million there right now. So anyway, we're concerned about that, and hopefully the architect and our GMC, we can shorten it up and look at some different ideas on our footprint of our building. So that'd be good, and as soon as we can get it out to bid, the better, so we can get somebody locked in at today's prices and not next year's. So that's all I have to report there. That's the savings we're looking at, and other than that, but you know, costs will increase. I don't know, it's too bad we didn't build this 2 years ago or a year ago. We'd sure been a lot better off.
Did you want to add to that? Would you please? And then also, if you could address like some of the engineering cost savings that you alluded to one guy, by getting it done, that you avoid some of the future cost increases. Okay, great.
We took a look at this plan, most recent one by Think Architecture, and we are making some assumptions. One is that what they laid out here on their plan was basically met the needs of both the fire and police department, because they showed all the detail of the interior of the buildings and so on. What they didn't do was put any dimensions on it. And so I tried to scale off this drawing by looking at some known distances, and I figured that the building is about, I've got it here, 116 feet long in one direction, 160 feet in the other, and 55 feet wide. And that would fit in very nicely on First South. And what that would do then is it'd move the building north from what Think had indicated in their plan. I don't have the drawings. Okay. How do you turn this on? Oh, that one. Okay, let me get oriented here now. Okay. Right here is First South, and what we're thinking is if we move the building north almost to that sidewalk, maybe with about 3 feet or 4 feet of a little planter area along that sidewalk, it'll still leave a nice green area in front of the entry to the existing city building. And we put the building right here along that sidewalk over to where this driveway turns out of the parking lot, and then down here onto this existing parking lot in front of the building we're in now. And it would just fit right around the existing fire station. It would take up this parking lot, and we could construct that building at the same time we're constructing this one. And you could function in the community development part of it here. The fire station could continue to function. We wouldn't change that operation all during construction. We're even thinking perhaps we could come in here and this park, something's probably going to need to be done with this. Maybe we could use this area as staging for construction because they need places to store materials and put up offices and so on, trailers. And maybe we could do that right here. But the advantage in moving that north is that we do all the construction at once, so we cut about a year off of the total construction time. The contractors only mobilize once. And by mobilizing, I mean, think of a masonry contractor. They have to bring in a mixer, a trailer, material, and they'd have to do that twice if we built the building down here. In our concept, you'd only mobilize once. You'd get the whole thing finished in approximately a year of construction instead of 18 months to 2 years. We think that would be a major savings. Then once this is all completed, you move your community development over into their new office over here. You move the fire department in their new office down here, and then you demolish all of this, and this becomes one central parking lot. Instead of a parking lot up here and there's another one here, this becomes a central parking lot. And then we even think there'll be some space left here that you could build kind of a plaza, which would be a plaza entry into your city building, your public safety building, and into your fire department, with the parking lot being right adjacent to that plaza, and consolidate all that in one spot. We think it's a big savings. We think it would get things going a lot faster, and we could get you into this thing in about a year.
So the PD would move at the same time then?
Beg pardon?
Yeah, just thinking of your staging, you've built both buildings now.
At the same time.
So you can move both your fire and your PD out of the old facility at the same time, which vacates and makes room for the community development in the old police area, all at the same time. And then when do you raise this building in the middle?
When it's built.
The fire station?
The existing fire and...
As soon as the fire department has moved into their new building and the community development have moved into their space in the existing city building, then that comes down immediately and gets paved over as a parking lot.
And as you look at that, you've saved 6 to 8 months of construction time?
Oh, at least.
At least?
Closer to a year, probably closer to a year.
Closer to a year?
9 months to a year.
And what did we anticipate mobilization to cost?
I don't know if you've broken that out as a separate cost.
I don't know how.
There's a mobilization line.
I think there was, yeah.
I'd have to look back at that. But, mobilization's tens of thousands of dollars, so I think there'd be a good cost savings. The other benefit to that is community development could continue operating as well.
Sure.
Because we were going to have to find a home for them
Right.
for a year.
So there's no temporary officing either.
Parking will be a little awkward for that year of
Sure.
construction, but you can continue to utilize this building and the fire station until construction is completed on both buildings.
Okay.
Architect makes you holes in it, say, we give them that option on our wall.
I think so. I think all options should be on the table.
The cost you wouldn't have otherwise, we'll have to relocate some of the utilities in First South.
Right.
Because we can't build a building over existing utilities, obviously. So we'll have to move those down. But we think the cost of doing that will be far less than the savings you'll have in completing this in a year.
And then have you discussed the possibility of saving the old rec center?
That could still be done even in this option, but it leaves it very, very tight to get fire trucks into that. And you'd have to go out onto First East with the fire trucks. You couldn't go onto Second South. We can look at that.
So the orientation would have to
It'd be
change.
really, really tight if you keep the old rec center. Probably could be done. It's just whether we'd have to talk to the fire chief, see if there's enough space and radius to turn trucks in there. If you have building there.
And we don't want to do something that is short-sighted. And at the same time, we'd like to explore whatever we can to preserve that which people are attached to. So if that can be looked at one way or the other, that would be
When we get
good.
the architect on board, we can have.
Architect can look at
make a
that.
recommendation
Sure.
Before we actually raise the building. And once you've done that, then that's the point of no return.
Well, yeah, so we would need to know pretty soon. Dave, one more question then. After you've mobilized and demobilized and finished up, you end up with extra space here?
But you'll have at least. the
Possibly
space you've got in the
here.
Park now. We're not anticipating losing any of the existing park space.
You might actually have extra.
You'll pick up the space occupied by the restrooms, because one of the proposals is that we open up exterior restrooms in either one of those buildings for use by the park, which eliminates the need for those restrooms. So that space becomes available in the park. And what else?
I think any additional space that's not park will be parking when it's all said and done.
Okay.
This is going to be pretty tight on parking as well, even the original concept plan.
Okay.
When Dave explained this to us, it's a great alternative that has not been explored. And really, like we're saying, once we get the architect on board, we can really dive into that one and say, okay, is this possible?
But according to my preliminary study of this, I actually came down here and took a tape measure and measured this off. We have, if I'm assuming the right dimensions on these think architectural drawings, 'cause that's a little bit of a guess, we have plenty of room to fit that in there and have room for construction.
Okay.
We can fence it all off. You can still use these buildings. We'll just fence that area off. And I think we have enough room to get in there. It'll be a little tight, but we can get the building built.
Okay. Good.
Dave, one quick comment. I love the idea of reducing the need for temporary officing, and to shorten the time by a year is incredible. I do recall very distinctly a conversation during the PSB committee meetings where they talked about, and the architect advised specifically against putting a building over 100 East for the concerns about utilities. But I recall him saying something about a possibility of some kind of a braced foundational reinforcement thing that allowed utilities in their existing place, but he said it was very costly, if I recall correctly.
You have to talk to the engineer about that.
I think it'd be difficult to leave them, but I don't think it's that big of a cost to move them either. I think we've only got water and pressure irrigation through there. We don't have storm drain and we don't have sewer. So, and those lines probably aren't, I was just looking that up actually to see what size our lines were, but those to be relocated out aren't very expensive to get them, and we wouldn't want to put it under the building. We would relocate them if the building's to go over them rather
Dan,
than
I
trying
think that
to.
kind of fits in the same category that we usually tell people when
Another
we
thing
put
we
in
noticed-
easements. No big buildings over the top of utilities, yeah.
It's a bad idea, I
Yeah.
think. And Scott specifically recommended against it, but I think there's some real savings
The other
here.
thing I noticed is that a lot of your parking lot is taken up with the public safety building by a turn to go into your sally port. Because that takes part of the parking lot. You gotta have room for the police car to turn and go in the side there. I'm suggesting just put the sally port faced onto first south there, and just bring the car up and go straight into the sally port without going off the parking lot. And you'll save quite a bit of space in the parking lot by doing that.
I'm looking over here to see if we
You'd have
get
to
a reaction.
reconfigure the building to do that, and that's down the road.
We're open to whatever works.
I think we all understand we're pretty preliminary, and there's a lot of logistics and things to talk to once we get with the architect, but Dave's given us some great ideas.
Yeah, the creative thinking is
Flowing.
pretty good. Outside the box. Very good. Thank you.
Have we had a conversation about the seminary building and the desire and or lack thereof?
I don't remember the PSB committee discussing this old seminary building, other than leave it, it's usable.
Okay.
I don't think there was, does anybody else remember that? I
I was
don't.
wondering if we wanted, if we did want more park space, and if we are demolition, the building, would behoove us to demolish both at the same time?
Sure. Okay,
If there's
Dave,
no
were
other
you,
questions,
anything
I'll
else?
start talking a little
Okay,
bit
let's
about
go
the
ahead and move to Scott.
And just on that, go ahead.
You do that.
Yeah.
This is not on BidSync, or this is on BidSync?
It is, yes.
Okay.
And on the front page of the website.
We've had 98 views on it, and it looks like almost all of the architects that I would recognize are on there viewing it. So a lot of contractors. There's a lot of people that have looked at it.
This was something I was going to bring up as we talked about the old rec and what the future of that is. And the old seminary building is something too that I think, to the mayor's point, that was not discussed in the public safety building committee as to what to do with that building. The inclination, in my opinion, is when we start getting into this, we're going to need that space for parking. And so there might be a need for that building to go down. When we know that, I don't exactly know. If we're going to take down the old rec, it would make sense that we do both of them at the same time. There is also a possibility on the old seminary building that if we want to treat it like the Beck home and just offer it to anybody in the community that wants the building for free, they would have to pay to move it, but they would need to come and get the building. And then if they wanted to preserve it and move it on a lot somewhere, that's another possibility that we could do. And maybe that's a discussion item we can put up for our offsite retreat and put that the future of the old seminary building as part of that discussion and see what the feelings are.
Yeah, I'd like to have that because I have a proposal that includes keeping it for city purposes. So, I mean, it's not for the discussion tonight, but yeah, I'd like
I'll put it on the
discuss
agenda.
that. I mean, I don't know if it's retreat material because I know there's so many other budget items we need to talk about, but I don't know. It's up to you.
We
Whether
have
it's
plenty of time. We need to fill the time.
but yeah, I would like to discuss that.
Okay, no, let's do it then. I think that'd be appropriate because we'll be talking about
37B, I think.
37B. Yeah, put
Okay,
me down as
37B.
37B for the agenda
You got
item.
On the financials, just on the bonding part, and we've already, I think we've covered this, but just kind of want to recap what our discussions were. If we were to borrow the full $9.5 million, whether we borrow it in February or September, as far as interest payments, it's not like a construction loan where you draw down on it. Is once we borrow the money, then the payments, will start 6 months later. And so there's not a difference in regards to the timing. The only thing that you have at risk at that point is whether interest rates are going to go up between February and September, and that is an unknown at this point. I mean, we have indicators on the national scene as far as what the Fed's going to do, but we don't know that. What Blaine's alluding to, and if I start getting this wrong, Blaine, let me know. He's saying that, look, if we just borrow the $7 million now, and we never need to borrow the $2.5 million, then we save ourselves a bunch of money on interest. And so that is a decision that we need to make. And so far, the decision the City Council has given direction is to borrow the full $9.5 million. And that's, I mean, we are heading through the process. We have our ratings presentation next week on that. We will be getting a rating by the end of January, and we will be borrowing the money sometime in the month of February. So that the other thing we could do is we could borrow $7 million now and just wait until a later time to determine if we want to borrow the other $2.5 million. And that is an alternative for the City Council.
Scott, if I'm not mistaken, I believe last month the bond council recommended that we borrow the full amount now. Is that correct?
Yeah, and staff's recommending that too. It makes the most sense, I think, in the long term. The only thing that would change that is if there is an inclination that we would never need the 9.5, the full 9.5. What the council committed to, from what I remember and what everybody signed the paper saying, is that the city council committed to bonding for no more than 9.5 million and using no more than $11 million of taxpayer money on the construction costs of the building. That's what I remember the commitments to be. Now, if I'm wrong on that, you guys can correct me, but that's what I remember the city council committing to. So financially, if we are heading down a road and thinking that we just want to borrow $7 million now, and that we won't need the 2.5 later, that's one way to go. If we do need the 2.5 later, there's a second cost of issuance. I think our number that we got was $40,000 for us to go back and to borrow that money. Now, if we borrow the 9.5 and we don't use all the 9.5, whatever the proceeds are left, we can turn around and use for our first bond payment, towards our first bond payment if it's not the full amount. If it is the full amount of our next bond payment, it would be that bond payment. Whatever's left over would go towards our So there are interest costs and all that, as Blaine suggested. If we do go back and end up borrowing the 2.5 later, we run a risk of a higher interest cost, and we also have the cost of issuance.
So if I understand you correctly, he's not incorrect in his calculation. It's more the risk or the guess, if you will, on the part of the council that, yes, we're going to need all 9.5, and we've been advised to take it all out at the same time, versus delaying and taking out the 9.5 later.
Yeah, and Blaine, I don't know if it was 250,000 on the interest. That I don't know about that number. I haven't researched that number, but that's what Blaine was saying. That was the cost savings on board if we just did the $7 million and never did the 2.5.
So, sorry, to go back to the 7 million, I'm a little confused. Is this a number, have we discussed this before?
What number?
The 7 million, I keep hearing 7 million. Is this a number that we've discussed, or where did this come from?
I don't think it's a specific number. I think it's an example that if you're not using the whole amount, because let's say that we decided as a city to make use of cash that's in the bank now rather than take out the loan immediately. You could conceivably go through a few months of work with that cash while you're determining what the savings might be, and then bond for the revised amount.
Right.
So 7 million, I don't think 7 million
But
was.
this is just a number being
it's
thrown
just
out.
an example.
Okay.
Right.
Well,
Like a lot of
yeah,
other
It's an example of whatever the number might be that you might save. That's the amount that you would borrow.
Yeah.
I'm just confused as to why 7, like 3 to
No, that
7.
was a
if
random
there's
number I
just-
Random.
picked when the
Random.
mayor asked, whenever it was, two months ago, okay, if we do this in 2 different issuances, what's going to be our additional cost? And so I just broke it up at 7 and 2.5.
Oh, okay.
It
I
could
don't
be
think
8,
There's no
5,
rhyme or
5,
There's no
7.
magic to it.
Okay.
It was just a kind of a break that I chose.
So
Okay.
having discussed that, I think we kind of discussed the concept, and what we were left with when we made the decision, however long ago it was now, 3 weeks, 4
Yeah,
weeks?
it's, I think 3 weeks ago when our financial,
I think we all understood that if we borrow the 9 million or 9.5, whether we borrow it now or we borrow it a year from now, whatever the interest rate is, you're paying all of that back over time.
yes,
It's just going to be paid back a year later.
yeah.
And then the other thing we discussed was whether or not we have actually identified what the full cost would be. And therefore, since 9.5 was the middle point, that people on the committee said, I'd like it to be less, and people on the committee said, I'd like it to be more. There was a compromise reached that said we will lock it in at 9.5 or less.
Yeah, up to
Therefore,
was-
let's
yeah.
do the 9.5. And then if we don't spend it all, then we can reimburse fund. That's what I understood the council's decision to be at that time. So it's kind of a compromise.
Right, and that's the direction that was the decision made when our financial advisor came. It was 4 weeks ago, December.
Does anyone on the council remember that differently? You guys, okay.
I think that's broadly accurate. I think one of the concerns the public may have is this idea that the minute we borrow 9.5 million, there's very little incentive not to spend all of it. And if we've got some proposals, some new ideas that save a year of construction time, it would be awesome if we could find a way to quantify what that savings might look like and figure out if there is. And again, we've got the 7 figures of impact fees available to do some research and do some analysis early. If those savings could be significant, I mean, you cut in a year off of construction with a creative approach to the way we do this project, it may get to the point where we could save enough that it would make sense to rerun our numbers and reevaluate when we pull the trigger on the bonding.
And or pay off the bond without having collected additional monies from the residents. So if I'm only using use the same number. If I'm only using 7 million out of the borrowed funds, then turn around and take the 2 million and pay it back, I'm not collecting that money from a resident.
I think that would be great if we had that level of fiscal discipline in our city. But when the 2.5 million additional beyond 7 million has been drawn down, the temptation is overwhelming to say, you know what, we can get some nicer things here because we saved so much there and the money is here. And so that, I think, is what's motivating a lot of the public's desire for some restraint in the way we finance this.
So 7 million isn't like a real number.
No.
So we're not drawing down 2.5 more than the budget amount because 7 million was never budgeted to begin with.
Right.
The public
You can
voted,
quantify
the
this
majority of the
number.
public voted on 9.5 million.
Right.
Or less.
So when we say, sorry, I'm speaking, let's have a good year and be respectful.
Well,
So yes, the 2 million, the public did vote on the 9.5. And I think what I'm hearing Councilman Stanley say is if through the process we identify that we're going to spend less, hopefully, then we can turn around and refund that money, whatever the number is. Not honing in on 7 million, just whatever the savings is, we could spend less. And that would be great if we can do that and still get all of the needs met. Yeah. Okay. Anything else, Scott?
now, if you want, I can talk a little bit about the old rec center. I sent an email to you.
Yes,
today
would
that
you
responded
please?
to, and I'll
I think we have a bit of a time crunch, and at the same time, we want to kind of give our people some chance to look at that.
Yeah, so as we're working through the early design things with our architect, once they get on board, assuming they're on board in early February, one thing that we need to figure out is if we're going to demolish that, when we're going to demolish or raise, might be a better term. The timing of that, it could get a little funny. If we're going to try to figure out a way to keep that, I just don't see a way we can have both buildings there and keep that there. I think what was being alluded to is we could keep the fire station there, but then they would have to back their trucks in. And the whole idea of the concept of having it downtown was to be able to have the pull through from First East over to Second South. So maybe this is just my uneducated opinion. I don't see a way if both buildings are going to be downtown that old rec is going to be able to stay. So if we can have an architect probably give us a pretty quick determination on that, I'm guessing by early March. But what I would, if our intent is that building needs to go down, we would like to have it down before we get really into Strawberry Days. And even talking with Guy and Dave when we had our meeting the other day, I mean, if things really fell into place, we were hoping we could be like putting a foundation in and things like that as early as June. Whether that's a possibility or not, I don't know, but we would need to have that building come down. So if we were to target April, May time for that to come down so that it doesn't interfere with Strawberry Days, it would be good if we had a group, our Historic Preservation Committee, to plan an event, an open house, a celebration, I'm thinking on a Saturday or something like that, where people can come in, they can tour the facility. We can have some speakers, those that went to high school there, those that want to share memories of that building, and talk about what it meant to the community.
I was thinking like a big band dance.
Yeah, something, or we can have a dance afterwards. That's fine. I'll go home before that, but in essence, take time to celebrate the structure that's been in our community over 100 years, and do that over a one-day event, and do that. So we need somebody to plan the logistics. Who's going to speak? What are we going to do? How are we going to run this? What day are we going to do this? And so I had suggested to the mayor that we either form a committee or we just have our Historic Preservation Committee do it. The mayor suggested that we just have our Historic Preservation Committee do it. So that's the first part. The second part is that we also need to determine how we're going to memorialize the building in our new facility. And so this same committee could say, all right, here's how we're going to do this. Now, whether it's taking some architectural features and implementing them in the new design, now that could cost us more money, so we'll have to think about that. Or we could take some of the brick from the old building and do an interior wall or a partial wall in there and hang a plaque on there and some old pictures of the old high school and the old rec center. Just saying, this is brick from this old building and it was here from 1910 to 2017 and here's all the uses and something like that. So anyway, we need somebody to sit down and think that through and start planning that. So I just threw it out to the mayor.
So my thoughts on that were in evaluating the angst that we have been through over the last 3 years on the subject. I think the Historical Commission is uniquely qualified, both from a respect perspective on historic buildings and also from a love perspective of that facility, and they would do a very good job credibly in planning out what the correct method is to show respect for that kind of a facility and what kind of a program would be the best way to honor it.
Okay.
So my thought on the rec center is I would like to see it stay up through Strawberry Days. I think there's going to be a lot of confusion for the committee to try and plan around it, especially if they don't know. So we'd have to make a decision probably in the next month or so if it's going to come down. But we could actually use Strawberry Days, at least the first few days before the carnival starts on Wednesday, to use that maybe as an open house time as you're suggesting, and to invite people during that time of year to come and put it out in the manual that goes out for Strawberry Days, kind of highlight it as a part of an event for Strawberry Days. And as you're discussing, really have it as a celebration time during, an event where a lot of people come out. And also Strawberry Days is a little bit earlier this year. It's, I believe, the 7th through the, I want to say the 18th or the 10th through the 18th. So everything would be wrapped up around the 18th of June. So I think it would still give us some time to, not cause that confusion about where the carnival or the downtown or the Strawberry Days, where a lot of it's going to be, but also memorialize it during that time of year, which is, brings a lot of people to Pleasant Grove, and a lot of people might be interested in it.
And that's great, and really.
Unless it's going to cost more money, if we can save money by starting earlier.
That's what I was going to say. Let us, we don't have to decide that tonight. I think it would be good to get our committee started and then at least get them with ideas, and they don't have to settle on a date until we probably get the architect on board and we do talk a timeline on construction. And and then we can just back that into whether we want to do this in May or June or July as far as demolishing the building. So it's probably a little bit too early, other than unless we just wanted to set a date and say we want it down by May 1st, then we can work towards that. But if we want to consider that, then let's let our professionals, once they get on board. Well, I think we'll know by March 1st kind of where we're at.
Okay. In any event, you've notified people that normally rent the facility that we won't be renting it after a certain date?
Yeah, after April 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other discussion on that part of it? Scott? No? Okay.
No, I'm done.
All right.
I
I'll-
have a
go ahead.
question. I have a question for our owners reps. So with the square footage and the creative thinking, can you imagine if we're going to come in under 9 million?
Would you mind stepping to the microphone? Sorry.
I don't see any way we can build this for less than $200 a square foot or in that ballpark. And so, unless we can maybe get creative and try to find some ways, do some more value engineering and looking into it a little bit, construction methods and so on. And that's one reason we want to get our construction manager on board along with the architect, because one of the things that's going to be our assignment to them is to work together as a team to try to make this building as economical as it can be, and yet functional and something will be pride to the community. You know, we want something that we can be proud to look at and say this is part of Pleasant Grove. So right now, I don't know how much under 9.5 million you could expect to build that, but until we get together as a team and really get our sleeves rolled up and looking at every aspect of the project, then we can get you some cost estimates.
Okay.
You know, somebody asked, well, how much will it save us to do it in a year, or save a year and do it in 1 year instead of 2? Our construction manager can help us lay out some estimates on some real dollar savings on, you know, speeding that up by a year, but based on their experience with cost escalation and that sort of thing. So we'll be looking at all of those issues to try to get this as inexpensive as possible and yet something everybody will be happy with. Okay.
Thank you. I did meet with a couple of donors over the holidays, and they have updated their desires as far as how the money is to be used. They're actually looking at what is it going to take to make the project work? Where are the needs? And they want to make sure that the needs are met. So as far as whether it goes towards a specific thing or, you know, a particular type of material being used, that was not something that they felt as strongly about. They felt much more strongly that the facilities were adequate and that the money went to good use to make sure that that it got completed with the needs being met of the public safety and courts departments. That was it. I found that very refreshing, very freeing, if you will. So I think it does lend itself more to this concept of less burden upon the taxpayer and more money directly towards the cost of the project. Okay, any other discussion on that? All right, let's go ahead then and move to reviewing our discussion on the January 10th council work session, which looks extremely short at this time.
We're complaining, right?
Nope, not at all. What I see right now is the one that jumps out is number 5. We'll get an update on the water storage tank. Marty, anything there you want to mention at this time?
No, I think it'll be a good discussion about exactly what we're going to end up with. We are having our 60% design meeting this week, so we are pretty far along in the overall tank design, placement, grading, things of that nature, but we need to get to the conclusion with regards to fencing and landscaping and a few other things that we'd like to get your thoughts on and things like that. So that's the concept of what we'll be discussing next week.
Okay.
Mayor Snowbird contacted us today and asked for their CEO to come and give us an update on their project. And I responded and suggested next Tuesday. So they haven't responded back, but they could possibly be on our agenda.
And that'll be in public meeting.
Yes.
Very good.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead then and come back to tonight's agenda. Neighborhood and staff business. Libby, do you have anything for us this evening? Okay. Ken?
With the general plan, we have our survey that will be up online tomorrow. So we're going to be announcing on social media. It has been announced in the newsletter that's been sent out, and of course it'll be on the website itself with the scrolling banner. So we'll be promoting that. The survey will be available online through the 31st. On the 18th, holding our community visioning workshop in relation to the updated general plan. Recreation Center. Already met once with the general plan committee, and times a month for the next 3 months.
Great. Yeah.
Ken, or Scott, the 24th is a joint Planning Commission City Council. Is that going to be more in line of a normal joint meeting, or is it going to be a city council?
The intent is for it to be centered on what the planning commission wants to talk about.
Okay.
Sometimes we just tend to get overwhelmed and we push things back, but we will do our best not to.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay. David?
Nothing.
Dion?
Nothing.
Great picture of a bear. Loved it on your card. It was one of the best ones. So thanks. Marty?
Just going strong with the snow yesterday and tomorrow predicted. So
Winter storm warning.
storm coming in again. So guys are busy. And we had a couple of water line breaks last week as well. So just busy time. Winter doesn't slow down.
No. Where are we at with the agreement on First East
Or with the county.
with the county?
We adopted ours and they adopted their end as well, so.
So are we now plowing?
No,
We
not
haven't
till,
signed the contract yet because they need to work out the finance.
So there was some language that had to be
contingencies in that agreement.
fixed, and then it'll come to us for signature?
Well, for the snow plow.
I didn't think we were plowing until the road was done, but maybe I missed.
Okay.
That was my
Well, that's
understanding too, is that when
some
they-
of the questions that I think are floating in the public are, has it been finalized, and what are the timeframes for transition, et cetera?
That being said, we may be able to work out an agreement to do it otherwise. Richard Nelson sent me something last week. I haven't looked at it in that much detail yet. But I think he wants to start finalizing some of those agreements. But our understanding is that at the time that the road is complete, then at that time we would start fulfilling our end of the obligation. But there may be an interim time that they may want to have us do that, but they'd have to pay us extra in my mind to do that.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else, Marty?
No.
Okay. Dave, anything for you?
Yeah, just a quick note. Ray Boone from KSL TV News came down and interviewed Arson the fire dog today. I wasn't there. I don't know what he said.
Is that going to be on tonight?
But no, I think it's either this Sunday or next Sunday
Oh, really?
is when he.
That's KSL.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I hope Dish and KSL can work out their, so I can watch it.
I'm not involved. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. Mike, anything?
We received notification today that we received our victim advocate grant.
Oh, great.
It was Kim's first, our new victim advocate, Kim, her first attempt at putting that grant together, and she did a really good job. We were awarded just under $21,000, and that money goes to for part of her wage.
That's great. Wonderful. Thank you. Anything else? Sherry?
Erin Summerell is on our library board, and she just got her first novel published with Houghton Mifflin, so it's big, and it's doing very, very well already. It's on Amazon bestseller lists, so very excited for her. And it looks like we're going to put the elevator up for bid, number 4.
Again.
And then, based on what happens there, we'll discuss at the retreat. And
Did you guys throw in that elevator?
No, we don't want to do that.
So that's it.
Anything else, Sherry? Okay, thanks. Denise? Okay, Scott?
Just a reminder, our off-site retreat is January 27th and 28th at Fox Hollow. We'll be planning on going all day Friday, probably starting around 9 o'clock, and then hopefully half-day Saturday. Unless Sid has a bunch more items for us. 37B.
I always have items.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Tina?
Nothing.
Okay. Kathy? Diana? That was definitely not it. Okay, Eric? Okay, Sid? Lynn?
Guy and Dave, thank you for your leadership.
Ben?
Yeah, thank you. Echo that sentiment. That's exciting, the ideas you're coming up with already. Appreciated your email, Mayor, with some assignments. I would love to hear when some of those committees meet. The Historic Committee, I don't know what their schedule's like, but
So the assignments haven't been published to the staff. They were just published to the council and to Kathy, Tina, and Scott. Pending the council's acceptance of those assignments, then we can go ahead and proceed forward. Were there any questions? The only one that is a repeat for anyone is Sid, because she's been here longer this time than anyone else. So, and the reason that is I was going to ask you to do what Lynn was doing, but I remember from past experience that those boards are somewhat touchy when it comes to a lot of change, and we need to have some continuity on the water boards and on the North Point and the what's the other one called?
TSSD.
TSSD, yeah. So if you're okay with that, you're the only one that would have a repeat of
That's fine.
prior
Well, and
assignments.
it's been a year, so I mean, it's been a couple.
It's been
yeah.
three.
Well,
this
I
would be
did a
the
couple
fourth
years
year,
ago.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Anyone else? You guys okay with the assignments? Okay, we'll move forward with those, and then Scott, if you want to publish that to the rest of the staff. And,
I'll forward it to the department heads.
All right. And then there was one more item. Ben, did you have anything else?
Yesterday I celebrated my 40th birthday. When you guys get to be my age, you will know that that's a big deal. And I am celebrating it, marking this auspicious occasion with a party on Friday night. So you guys please all feel invited if you happen to be free this Friday from 7 to 10 at Fox Hollow. We'll listen to some live bands. We'll have some cupcakes. We'll have some fun.
And Rebecca will embarrass you?
Probably.
Good.
But
Oh, Ben, when you
I
say
like to hear
when we get to your age, were you talking to David Larson? Was that it?
I'm looking around the room here going,
It's going to be a great day.
Anything else?
I think that's it. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay. Traditionally, we elect a new mayor pro tem on the first Tuesday of the month in January. We neglected to get that on our agenda this evening, so we're going to do that at our next meeting.
If it's okay, we would recommend doing it on the 17th,
The 17th?
Yeah.
Okay.
since next week would just be a work session.
Well, you all have the opportunity to negotiate amongst yourselves who wants this wonderful responsibility. It'd be great.
Just have
Okay.
Diana do it again. I mean,
Diana's done a nice
Perpetuity.
job.
She loved it so much.
Can we do it twice in a row?
Okay, no plats. Is there anything noticeable on the calendar you wanted to bring up? We have the bond trip next Thursday and Friday
Thursday and Friday.
to get the ratings.
Yep.
Okay. All right. And then we need a motion to adjourn from this meeting and go into executive session and then to come back out. And this is to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation.
I make the motion that we exit regular council meeting and enter into executive session for pending or reasonably imminent litigation.
Okay, we have a motion by Sid and a second by Lynn. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, we're going to go into executive session. Let's take a 5-minute bio break, and those that want to stay for any announcements afterwards are welcome to do so.